apart. The next type of comparison that we're going to talk about is known as part to whole comparisons. So I'm going to give you just a second to copy down this heading, and then we're going to talk about some examples of this. So unlike part to part, where you compare the two parts of the whole group, for this one, you're going to compare a part of the group to the entire group, or the whole group. So this one compares the subset to the entire group. And once you've got that written down, then we are going to talk a little bit about an example. So I just want you to write down these letters. And so for these letters, we could compare a number of things. We could compare the number of vowels, A, E, I, O, U, to the number of consonants, which are all the other letters of the alphabet. So for this one, we are going to compare vowels to letters. So I'm going to tell you a common mistake that students make when they do this particular example. A common mistake is they go ahead and they figure out how many vowels there are. So if you don't know what a vowel is, now is a good time to learn that. A vowel is a letter like A, E, I, O, or U. So I'm going to go through my list and I'm going to underline the only vowels that are in my list, A, E, and I. And so that is 3 letters. Now I'm trying to compare that to the total letters in my list. That doesn't mean that I don't count the 3 vowels, because if I want the total number of letters, I have to count anything that's a letter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 letters. So that means that it looks like this, depending on how I write it. So 3:9, or 3 to 9, or 3 out of 9. So this one, we're going to talk about, could you simplify this in just a few minutes? And yes, you can. But basically, this means that out of the 9 letters total, remember we're comparing a part to a whole, 3 are vowels. Now, you should know enough to be able to work with this mathematically. If there are 9 letters and 3 are vowels, then the rest have to be consonants. So if I asked you to compare the number of consonants to the letters, you should be able to figure out how many that would be. The last thing that we are going to talk about today is called simplifying ratios. And this is exactly what it sounds like. Just like anytime I ask you to simplify a math problem, it means I want you to make it smaller. We can do the exact same thing with a ratio. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. So you're going to see what I'm going to do with my notebook. I'm going to split my notebook right down the middle. And we're going to do the first example here. Let's imagine that we have 3 dogs and 9 cats. And I want to write a ratio that represents the number of dogs compared to the pets. Now, what I have to understand is that I'm comparing a part, the dogs, to the whole, the number of pets. I'm not comparing dogs to cats. I'm comparing dogs to all of the pets. These are both classified as pets. So the number of dogs, I look at my list, is 3. And the number of pets, well, how can I determine the number of pets? Well, if I go to the store and there are 3 dogs and 9 cats, then 3 plus 9 means there's a total of 12 animals or 12 pets in that pet store. So this is my ratio comparison, 3 to 12. Remember, it can also be written like this, or it could be written like this. So once you write it like this, then you can find a common number that goes into both the 3 and the 12. So if you think about 3 and 12, and you're looking for a common factor for 3 and 12, that number would be 3. So here's what that looks like. If I simplify this by 3, that gives me a 1. And if I simplify this by 3, that gives me a 4. So the simplified ratio of dogs to pets is 1 to 4. You will notice that these are just really equivalent fractions. If I write 1/4 and 3/12, those should be equivalent fractions. 1 times 3 is 3, 4 times 3 is 12. So what this means is out of every 4 pets, 1 is a dog. Out of every 4 pets, 1 is a dog, because we compared dogs to pets. Last example looks like this. We're going to talk about money. So let's imagine that in my pocket I have 20 dimes and I have 14 nickels. If this is the case, I want to compare dimes to nickels. So this time I'm not comparing dimes to all of the money. I'm not comparing dimes to the total amount of cash that I have. I'm comparing the dimes to the nickels. So the number of dimes is 20. The number of nickels is 14. I gave you this one on purpose because a lot of times students think that the 14 is smaller, so it has to go first. But remember, we're comparing them in a specific order. Dimes go first, nickels go last. Remember that you can also write this a couple of different ways. You could write it like this, or you could write it 20 to 14. So keep in mind that you can write that a couple of different ways. So my job is to try to find a number that is a factor of both 20 and 14. So if you think about 20 and 14, there are a couple of different ways to get 20. 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 4 times 5. Well, the only one that I said that works with 14 is 1, which wouldn't help me, and 2. So I'm going to simplify both of these by 2. 20 divided by 2 is going to give me 10, and 14 divided by 2 is going to give me 7. So the ratio of dimes to nickels is 20 to 14, but also 10 to 7. So this means that for every 10 dimes, there are 7 nickels. Okay? So I want you to make sure that you've numbered this page. This is page number 50 in your notebook. And then what you're going to receive is you're going to receive a copy of a foldable that looks like this. So what you're going to need to do is to fold it, trifold. So that it looks like this. You're going to turn your notebook over to page 51, and this is going to go onto page 51. Now I'm going to show you how to do the front. It says a ratio can be written 3 ways. There are 10 boys and 13 girls in Miss Wonderful's class. And so your job is to write the ratio of boys. We're comparing boys to girls. So there are 10 boys. We're using the word 2. And there are 13 girls. Exact same ratio, boys to girls, using a colon. So 10 boys to 13 girls. The last one says write the ratio using a fraction, so that one's going to look something like this. 10 boys to 13 girls. So now what you're going to do is you're going to open this up and you're going to follow the instructions. This one says a ratio can compare a part to a part. So It shows you the animals at the veterinarian's office. There's 4 little puppy dogs and 2 little kitty cats, and your job is to read the instructions and to write them out. Then you have a picture of some shapes, and your job is to write them out. Don't worry about the remember box. We'll talk about it later. Over here, this one says to draw the picture that represents it. So this one says the ratio of yellow flowers to pink flowers is 2 to 5. So that means you're going to have to draw some yellow flowers and some pink flowers. And then on the back, you get to be a little creative. It says write a real world context for each ratio. So if you're doing 3 to 8, you could write, I have 3 yellow markers and 8 purple markers. That would be a real life scenario for that one, but you can write whatever you would like. Same thing goes for 6 and 12. And then here it says you write your last name in the box, and then you're going to count the number of vowels and the number of consonants, and you're going to use that to answer the questions about ratio comparisons. If you need to, feel free to rewind this video and watch it again so that you get the most information as possible from this lesson. Thanks.